right now is Republican Senator of Texas, Ted Cruz. Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Maria, great to be with you.
What are your expectations for this filibuster fight?
Well, listen, I think the Democratic Party right now is controlled by the radical left. Joe Biden doesn't have the courage or wherewithal to stand up and say no to Bernie Sanders, to Elizabeth Warren, to AOC. And if Democrats succeed in ending the filibuster, they will ram through the most dangerous radical agenda this country has ever seen. If they end the filibuster, we will see amnesty for every illegal alien in America. If they end the filibuster, we will see them coming after our guns and attempting national gun registries and confiscation. If they end the filibuster, we'll see 2 new states, District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, because they believe that'll give them 4 new Democratic senators. If they end the filibuster, Maria, they will pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They will take it from 9 justices to 13 justices and put 4 new radical leftists on the court. You and I have talked about my latest book, One Vote Away, how a single seat on the Supreme Court can change history. If they pack the Supreme Court, those leftists will take away our religious liberty, our free speech, our Second Amendment, our fundamental rights, and that's what the radicals are pushing the Democrats to do right now.
Do you think that there's any way to stop it? I mean, can Republicans do anything to stop this?
So if they hold their conference, they can end the filibuster. And right now, there are 2 Democrats who've said they oppose ending the filibuster. Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona. And right now, the whole weight of the world, Chuck Schumer, I'm pretty sure he's got like thumb screws or the rack in his office. And he is pounding on him. Everyone on the left is pounding on Manchin and Sinema. And they're pressing on them to end the filibuster and pass this radical agenda. If you're a person of faith, you need to be praying for spinal fortitude for Manchin and Sinema. And I'll tell you what concerns me is that they end up playing some sort of game. And you showed some of this in your monologue a minute ago where they say, OK, we won't end the filibuster, but let's just do a talking filibuster. A talking filibuster is a fancy way of saying end the filibuster, because when the person stops talking, then they will pass their radical agenda through. And so I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't play those kind of games. If they do, I think you can expect Republicans doing everything humanly possible to fight. But if they can hold their 50 votes, that it will be a very, very dangerous time for our nation.
I want to get your take on the economic agenda in a minute. But first, let's spend a moment on the border. You are leading a Senate delegation to visit the overcrowded facilities. What are you expecting to see? I understand that these facilities are expected to hold 200 people, but there are upwards of 800 people jammed into these buildings. The president will not allow the press into these centers, citing COVID. So we don't know what these overcrowded facilities look like. Do you?
Well, and that's why I'm leading a delegation to go down to the border. We're going next week. John Cornyn and I together have invited our colleagues. We're going to bring a number of senators to go down to the border to meet with Border Patrol agents, to meet with leadership, to meet with law enforcement, to meet with community leaders, and to tour the facilities directly. I've spent a lot of time down in the valley on the Texas border. I've spent a lot of time with Border Patrol. We are seeing an absolute crisis unfolding. We're seeing the numbers skyrocket. We're seeing the numbers of kids, the number of kids in cages. Joe Biden is building new cages because his amnesty policy is resulting in thousands upon thousands of little boys and little girls being handed over to human traffickers and abused in the hands of human traffickers. Indefensibly, this crisis is the result of Joe Biden giving in to the radicals. When Biden became president, he immediately halted construction of the border wall. He ended the Remain in Mexico policy, which was a great foreign policy victory. President Trump negotiated with Mexico that for illegal immigrants that were crossing up from Central America, crossing through Mexico, seeking asylum in the U.S., they agreed to remain in Mexico. Biden ended that and said, let them all in. And he reinstituted catch and release. So now when we apprehend illegal immigrants, we let them go, and it's producing a crisis because of Joe Biden's political decisions.
H.R. 1 is something we've been talking about a lot. What are your expectations on this election bill, which it's called for the people? I wonder if it should be called for the politicians.
It is the single most dangerous piece of legislation before Congress. What I call H.R. 1 is the Corrupt Politicians Act. It says something. H.R. 1 was the very first bill the Pelosi Democrats took up in the House. It's the #1 bill. It's not about COVID. Right. It's not about vaccinations. It's not about getting people back to work. It's not about getting kids back to school. It is about ensuring that Democrats remain in power and control for the next 100 years. It is a radical bill. What does it do? It federalizes all elections. It strikes down every election reform protection at the state level. So photo ID laws. Right now in a lot of states, you got to use photo ID to vote. The Corrupt Politician Act strikes that down. It sets up automatic voter registration, which would result in millions of illegal immigrants and criminals and felons being able to vote. The Democrats believe if illegal immigrants and felons are voting, that benefits the Democrats and keeps them in power. Not only that, it mandates universal mail-in balloting. It mandates ballot harvesting. This is all designed to facilitate fraud. It is also welfare for politicians. For every dollar they raise, they get $6 of taxpayer money. It is all about keeping Democrats in power. And the threat is to take away your right to vote by allowing millions of illegal immigrants and felons to vote. I think it is a profound threat to our democracy and to our republic.
Senator, real quick, I want to get your take on the Washington Post correction this week and really look at how the media is driving this as well. But before I do, let me just say that I misspoke last night and said that the call in question was a call between President Trump and the Secretary of State of Georgia. No, it wasn't. It was President Trump and a Georgia election official. But the bigger story here is the fact that the Washington Post reported on that call and reported that President Trump said, "Find the fraud." And all of these other networks and reporters came out after and said, yes, we also independently confirmed this. When in fact, this week we saw the actual tape. President Trump didn't say anything at all like that. What strikes me is how all of the media went behind the Washington Post and also said, find the fraud, which he didn't at all. Watch this. It's incredible. Watch.
NBC News confirming a Washington Post report revealing that President Trump placed a separate call to Georgia election officials, pressuring them to, and I quote, find the fraud.
First reported by the Washington Post and confirmed by our colleague Jason Morris that the president called one of these investigators and urged him to, quote, find the fraud.
NBC News has now confirmed reporting that Trump made another call to Georgia elections officials, pressuring one to, quote, find the fraud.
I mean, we have the tape now, Senator. It said nothing of the sort. And of course, this is very impactful because this was used as evidence at the impeachment trial against President Trump. Your reaction?
Look, Donald Trump broke the media. The mainstream media is now, they hate Donald Trump so much that they don't pretend to be objective. They don't pretend to be impartial. They don't pretend to be journalists. They are partisan propagandists. They are liars. And in this instance, the Post, what they reported, this wasn't a small detail in the story. The quote, find the fraud, which all those clips you just played, and I quote, find the fraud, and I quote, find the fraud. Well, your quote is a lie. It wasn't said. It's made up. It's not true. But it was too good to check. It fit the narrative too much. And so the Post this week was forced to correct it and say, the central point in the story we ran that was the blockbuster accusing the president of doing something, never mind. That wasn't true. And by the way, there's the old line that a lie can make it all the way around the world before the truth even gets its shoes on. In this instance, the correction the Post put out was, what we reported that was used, and you rightly pointed this out, as evidence by the Democrats in the impeachment trial against Donald Trump. That evidence was fraudulent. It was fabricated. And the news, the Washington Post and every other outlet that echoed it bear the responsibility for reporting what was quite literally fake news.
It's quite extraordinary. Senator, it's good to see you tonight. We'll keep spotlighting it, all of it. Thank you, sir.